This message this morning was purchased by Harold and Linda Crichton. So if you like it, compliment them for making this decision. If you don't like it, come to me. I have made a wee little book, which I call The Philosophy of Jesus. It is a paradigma of his doctrines, made by cutting the text out of the book and arranging them on the pages of a blank book in a certain order of time or subject. A more beautiful or precious morsel of ethics I have never seen. It is a document in proof that I am a real Christian, that is to say, a disciple of the doctrines of Jesus, very different from the Platonists who call me infidel and themselves Christians and preachers of the gospel, while they draw all their characteristic dogmas from what its author said or saw. They have compounded from the heathen mysteries a system beyond the comprehension of man, of which the great reformer of the ethics and deism of Jesus, were he to return to earth, would not recognize one feature. Thus wrote Thomas Jefferson about his version of the four Gospels found in the Christian Bible. He came up with this project earlier in life and wrote a letter to encourage Unitarian minister and political philosopher Joseph Priestley to take up that project. Unknown to Jefferson, when he sent the letter out, trying to persuade Priestley to translate the Bible and to remove the miracles, Priestley was on his deathbed. So it was left for Thomas Jefferson, third president of the United States, author of the Declaration of Independence, ambassador to France, to undertake the editing of the Gospels to reflect the truth about Jesus of Nazareth, according to Mr. Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson believed in reason and science. He found the Christian faith that he was reared in, the Church of England, and later the Episcopal Church after the American Revolution, too superstitious in its beliefs. He felt there was truth in the four Gospels in the Christian Bible, but it was obscured by accounts of miracles, the fulfillment of Jewish prophecy, and myths. Jefferson believed that Jesus of Nazareth was a man who had a deep spiritual center, who went about through preaching and by his actions, advocating for a higher morality. As Jefferson himself stated, most Christians were concerned with the gospel about Jesus. He, Jefferson, was concerned with the gospel of Jesus, what Jesus said and did rather than who he was purported to be. Jefferson noted that the followers of Jesus in the first generations after his death were less interested in his divine nature than they were in the path that he followed and the world that he encouraged them to build. After all, the first name for the followers of Jesus when they organized was not the word Christian. They called themselves the New Jerusalem movement. Not Christian. They were trying to found a movement. It was inspired by Jesus' life and example. We have evidence of this movement in the Christian narratives of the early church. The communities Paul established in Italy and Greece were places that shared food, offered mutual comfort, broke the boundaries of class, and spread the news that all people were to be loved, even one's enemies. We have a narrative of a martyred Roman soldier who refused to kill because his understanding of Christian ethics and Jesus' example led him to embrace pacifism. Note that the soldier died because he followed the ethos of Jesus, not theological beliefs about Jesus. This is one of many stories that tell us that ethics and example were the guides to the early followers of Jesus more than theological premises. Centuries after his death, the Christian community organized around the gospel about Jesus instead of the ethics of Jesus. As Robin Myers states, consider this remarkable fact. In the Sermon on the Mount, there is not a single word about what to believe, only words about what to do and how to be. By the time the Nicene Creed is written, 3 centuries later, there is not a single word in it about what to do or how to be, only words about what to believe. Taking on the values of the Roman Empire and ignoring the call to compassion, the Christian church ignored the gospel of Jesus for many centuries. Yes, they remembered all the miracles. They emphasized belief over ethics, and that is even seen today in some forms of Christianity, like the Christian nationalist movement that moves for many forms of oppression, none of which Jesus advocated. That kind of thinking was something that Jefferson was opposing in his editing of the Christian Gospels, the books that tell about the life and ministry of Jesus of Nazareth. Those are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Some of you may not have grown up in that tradition, so I need to tell you. For Jefferson, the value of the Christian faith was not in viewing Jesus as God. He thought that traditional Christianity created that aspect of Jesus to distract the faithful from the message of goodwill to others that Jesus preached. By making Jesus superhuman, the church detached him from the human condition or even any real practical morality. After all, God might instruct us, but if one is immortal and omnipotent, then how can God understand the reality of being finite and weak like we humans are? The organized Christian faith was vigilant in ruling out heresy, which was based upon theological belief. It is remembered that the office of the Inquisition was still active and powerful in many lands when Thomas Jefferson was alive. And it has only been in my lifetime that the Roman Catholic Church changed the name of the office of the Inquisition to the office, something like the office of the maintenance of the faithful or something of that, like that. It was also known to those who studied ancient history, as Jefferson had, that Greek and Roman civilization emphasized miracles as a revelation that someone was important. Jefferson believed that Jesus' teachings and example held value for people of many different theological perspectives, and that was why he edited the gospel accounts. He felt that the book that he was writing transcended the traditional views of Jesus so much that it could be read by anyone, regardless of that person's faith, and that none should fear that it would change them for the worse. He wrote, and I'm sorry for this 18th century kind of language, but that's what you get with Jefferson sometimes. He wrote, "Do not be frightened from this inquiry by any fear of its consequences. If it ends in a belief that there is no God, you will find incitements to virtue in the comfort and pleasantness you feel in its exercise, and the love of others it will procure you. If you find reason to believe there is a God, a consciousness that you are acting under his eye, that he approves you will be a vast additional excitement. If there be a future state, the hope of a happy existence, and that increases the appetite to deserve it. If Jesus is also a God, you will be comforted by a belief of his aid and love." In brief, Jefferson is saying that his translation without miracles can be read by people of different theological beliefs and change their ideas or add to their beliefs that they already had. While Jefferson makes that claim, I find it doubtful that someone who followed Jesus because of miracles and prophecy would find any comfort in his book that admits those supernatural powers attributed to the second person of the Christian Trinity. Jefferson wrote his manuscript after years of study. He read commentaries, learned Koine Greek, and read multiple translations. Rewriting the Bible became his retirement project, and it took him 15 years of effort to finish it. Doing so in 1819, he dedicated the work to his grandchildren, at least the ones he acknowledged. So, why have you not heard about Jefferson's editing of the Gospels before? After he completed his work, Jefferson set it aside. He stated that he had created the document for his personal spiritual needs and did not want to share it. Well, if that was so, then why did he dedicate it to his grandchildren? If this version of the Gospels was only personal, then who would read it to discover the dedication? The other reality is that he left it to be found, and his recognized progeny were unlikely to destroy a book that he dedicated to them. I think that Jefferson's family was embarrassed by his version of the Gospels. They were conventional Episcopalians and probably did not want Jefferson's theological views to create controversy as his descendants. Eventually, they needed money and sold Jefferson's Bible in 1895 to the National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C. It was hardly known to the general public. In 1904, the Congress of the United States ordered the publication of about 10,000 copies to be distributed by members of Congress to their supporters. It was not until 1951 when the Beacon Press, the printing house of the American Unitarian Association, published what has become known as the Jefferson Bible, that some had the opportunity to read it. However, the American Unitarian Association's version of the Jefferson Bible was, in the words of one commentator, unpretentious. That means it was probably distributed to Unitarian congregations as a glorified pamphlet. It was not until 1964 that a volume of the Jefferson Bible was published with commentary. Jefferson's theological background and historical context provided, including scholarship by a Unitarian Universalist minister. This book was widely read at the time, but it did not have the impact it might have had in 1964 that it would have had in 1819, particularly for the movement in New England churches that would soon become Unitarians. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "Question with boldness even the existence of a God, because if there be one, he must approve of the homage of reason more than that of blindfolded fear. You will naturally examine first the religion of your own country. Read the Bible then, as you would Livy or Tacitus." Those were Roman writers in the past. "Those facts in the Bible which contradict the laws of nature must be examined with more care and under a variety of phases. Here you must recur to the pretensions of the writer to inspire from God. Examine upon what evidence his pretensions are founded, and whether the evidence is so strong that its evidence that its falsehood would be more improbable than a change in the laws of nature in the case he relates." Jefferson sounds in that like a Unitarian Universalist, doesn't he? He considers himself a Unitarian during his lifetime, though one could only become a Unitarian in those days by joining a Unitarian church, and none were anywhere near his home in rural Virginia. In my time in the Unitarian Universalist movement, I have seen Jefferson's legacy and our tradition transition from pride. We even had a district named after him, to distancing our community from someone who profited from human bondage and who sold his own daughter and gave intellectual defense of racism. Yet he led this nation and helped us to attain independence. He was responsible for the division between church and state in Virginia. Jefferson is complicated for us. We are reassessing our connection with him. The Jefferson Bible is also complicated. No, not the text itself. It's straightforward. The most complicated part of it for me is, why did Thomas Jefferson write it? His answers are not satisfactory for the amount of work that he put into it. And the other question is, why did he not publish it or ask his heirs to publish it? The answer, I believe, is to be found in human nature. A human being may be born with certain traits of personality, certain points of character, a physical entity we are. A human being is also the sum of the total of life experiences. Like the rings of a tree, each experience is still present with us. You, part of you, as you grow older and wiser, you may think you're beyond those younger selves within you. Part of you is the child who played in the sun. Part of you is the person who struggled through puberty. Part of you is the adult who might regret mistakes. You are not just the person you are now. You are also the person you were, even if you don't want to be. As I read the Jefferson Bible, I wondered if this was in the subconscious part of Jefferson's thoughts, beneath the intellectual shell to protect him. Strangely, really intelligent people are often very good at shielding their consciousness from their inner selves. I wonder if Jefferson wrote his version of the Gospels to integrate his inner self with a young person who went to church with his parents and connected with the creeds of the Church of England, and also the men who worked to disestablish the religious tradition he grew up in from the Commonwealth of Virginia. The Jefferson Bible was not a light undertaking, even for a mind as keen as Jefferson's. He learned ancient Koine Greek, a difficult language, read a lot of biblical scholarship, and spent much time in earnest reflection and editing the text. It took years, 15 years. He was driven with a zeal to find what was credible to him in the Christian Gospels. And then he decided not to share it after the work was finished. It seems possible that Jefferson was trying to reconcile his childhood faith with his adult intellect. Once he proved to himself that there was something worthy in the faith of his youth, he shut the book, and did not share his thoughts. Remember that he had spent much energy in separating church and state. Perhaps his mind struggled with different parts of his life, and once they were integrated, he no longer felt the need to share his thoughts with others. The great debate about Christianity had happened in his own head. It ended with when he found what he deemed good in the faith and still retained his Enlightenment era belief in reason. Jefferson's journey is not unlike that of many Unitarian Universalists. Most of us were reared or converted to other faith traditions before we came to this one. For some of us, our journey is to integrate in our own way the faith tradition of the past with a faith tradition of the present. I experienced that only once in my calling to ministry. I served a Unitarian Universalist congregation in New England that had a centuries-old tradition of the minister doing something that I had qualms about when the congregation asked me to do the same. Reflecting on my discomfort with their tradition, I thought, for once I can say that I agree with the Southern Baptists about something. The Baptists were right. Perhaps something similar to this has occurred to you as well. Jefferson's example demonstrates that we are the sum of our experiences and also our spiritual journeys. It seems only appropriate to end this message today with Jefferson's own words and deliberation on the way we must reflect on our spiritual journey and ethics. Jefferson wrote, "I must ever believe that religion is substantially good, which produces an honest life, and which we have been authorized by one whom you and I equally respect, to judge of the tree by its fruit. Our particular principles of religion are subject to accountability to God alone. I inquire after no man's religion, and trouble none with mine, nor is it given in this life to know whether yours or mine, our friends or our foes' beliefs are exactly right." With that, we end. Amen.